The second one is a classic hardbat association. And again, the names will not necessarily be the right one. They will decide on that also. But I will replace the hardbat committee and will govern its own structure. But it's very important to realize that the relationship between these organizations, if this passes, will still be a close one. They can receive budget, they can have a lot of influence on USATT. The other thing that you can do is a task force. The bylaw stipulates very clearly what a task force can do. Among other things, they have to have active representative, they have to have not more than 5 individuals, and so on. And currently we have temporary task forces. We have the committee evaluation that I'm now speaking on behalf of. You have a bylaws task force, a high performance task force, a National Assembly task force. So these are currently, but that will change from time to time. It could be a 1-month task force, a 10-year task force. That's up to the decision of the board or the chief executive officer. And we have another organization called the United States Table Tennis Foundation. In the USATT bylaws, we have a recognition of the USATT Foundation. That is a 501c3 non-profit charity organization that is separate from USATT. It's a separate organization, separate bylaws, separate purpose. But the main purpose of the foundation is to raise money for the development of table tennis in the United States. And they have the right to have a representative on the board with a voice but no voting privileges. The recommendation of the task force is that the foundation is given certain marketing rights for fundraising and sponsorships. This is in the recommendation of the task force, the most logical way for the organization to focus on fundraising and marketing. And it can also share staff for marketing and fundraising between USTTF and USATT, if this passes. And again, I want to stress that this is a recommendation, and you can have input on this if you like it or don't like it. And tomorrow, the board will look at your suggestions and make a final decision. It might not be the same one, we might change things, but your opinion here is important. That's one of the purposes of the National Assembly. And I hope you can join our USATT team of growing influential committee members. However, if you're going to be chair of a committee, you have to show up at the National Assembly. That's a very important requirement. But we're not going to take questions and comments right now. We're going to wait for that at the end. We have a question-answer session that will be at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. 2 more items on our agenda, and then we go to the informal part where we'll have the exchange between the board members and the members out there. Peter's already introduced you to Ashley Jane as having attained a seat within the AAC at-large member. Let me tell you, that is huge. Huge. Because it's only the athletes that are like that from all the sports there. So that means all of the other Olympic and summer winter sports thought that Ashley had enough character and intelligence and integrity to be one of their leaders. And again, that opens the door. So you should be very, very proud of him. Ashley, that's your introduction.
Hi, guys. So first I have to apologize to Christian. The reason none of the chairs came up, we got no 7 notification letters. So that's my fault. I'm just joking. I'm here to talk about the bylaws, but I'm not going to talk too much about the bylaws because I see some of you falling asleep. But keep in mind, the most important part about this assembly is that we want to interact with you. You know, we want to talk to you. We want to get your opinions. We're going in depth with the information because we want you to give back. Tomorrow we have a board meeting, so everything that you tell us tonight, you know, it's important to us. Peter, myself, and Linda, we're in the middle of doing a cleanup job on the bylaws. We're not planning on doing any significant changes to the bylaws. From what you see on the website, it will stay pretty much the same. We're making the language more consistent. We're going to clean it up, and then we'll have certain changes to the bylaws, which we'll present at a later board meeting. I actually did really just want to thank everybody personally for coming tonight. Last year we only had 36 or so. This year we brought in some food, so I guess that's why we have 85. Next year I think we're going to bring more food and maybe some music. We'll have more membership. But really, thank you for coming over here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mike.
The last official report that comes from Han. He's going to speak about the high-performance plan. Again, you should be very proud of this young man because he has really taken authority here with this very important aspect of our program.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know what the high-performance plan is, it's something mandated by USATT pretty much, and we use it to basically plan out how the United States plans to win medals at some future date. It's basically a long-term goal to develop athletes. It's a rolling plan, so every year we come up with a new one. But this year we really had to make some fundamental changes in the way we approached it. And USATT really wants this to be a coach-driven plan, so this year we really went straight to the coaches. What we did this year was we sent a survey by email to every coach that had an email address on file with USATT. Of those, I think we received a little over 50 responses the first go around, and we gathered information about what kind of programs coaches were running, whether they were interested in developing high-level athletes, potential Olympians, and furthermore, any input they had in terms of the high-performance plan. And after that, we kind of compiled this. We had our task force of 5 people, once again, come up with a general outline of the plan that we wanted. And we really wanted to attack this from 2 fronts, judging from the input the coaches provided. One front is we want to continue focus and increase focus on junior and cadet development. So kind of shifting focus a little bit away from what we've done in the past and more so towards junior and cadet programs, which is where we think the focus really needs to be. And on the second front, in order to make any sort of progress we make sustainable, we want to focus on having infrastructure changes. And this is on a lot of different levels. One of the big ones was coaches obviously reflected that we need to have better coaching organization and better ways of recruiting and developing coaches. Other things that we thought were important were potentially seeking some sort of hierarchy in terms of club management or some other hierarchy in the organization, with the eventual goal being to develop club leagues and things like that we see successful in other countries, but that's really a long-term goal, with the eventual goal being to win a medal in 2020, which we realized, is a very lofty goal and very difficult to attain, but we thought we would aim high and really seek to challenge ourselves. And while at the same time still trying to be feasible. And in general, I think we had a great group of people on this task force. We had 2 coaches, we had Xiao and we had Dora. So their insight really helped us. We had a video. So it provided a lot of insight in terms of how we could best use our collegiate resources. And then we had 2 elite athletes, myself and Jack and Lee. So I felt like we had a good group of people to put this together, along with the input we had from the coaches. And continuing the theme of really having this be coach-driven, we're continuing our process of information gathering, even as we continue to try and put pieces of this into implementation. So during this tournament, a lot of you coaches or a lot of the other coaches will see I'll be walking around constantly asking for input. And if any of you members have any input on high performance as well, feel free to stop me if you see me, or after our assembly tonight, if you have any words from me, I'd be glad to listen. So thank you all for coming out.
While Dora was going from PowerPoint to the last DVD, I got to tell you that this last DVD was loaned to us by the U.S. Olympic Committee, and they said, please, we don't have rights to the music to this. So you can show the video and its highlights in Beijing, but we're not supposed to listen to the music. So Dora's supposed to turn it down when there's not any narrative. We'll see if that works. Before we roll this last DVD, something exciting. I got a call last week from the Chinese embassy, and it was confirmed while I was driving over here today, that because of Secretary Paulson and Secretary Condoleezza Rice, they're doing a farewell to them on the Chinese embassy side. They invited by name Judy Horcross, George Braithwaite, Ariel Singh, and Peter Lee, all expenses paid. They leave January 6th, They arrive January 7th. They play a ping pong diplomacy exhibition on January 8th and return on the 9th. News at the board meeting? I don't think so. Dora, would you roll that, please?
It's rushing in front. U.S. is gaining. Sonia Richard digging deep. Here she is on the challenge. Alongside, it's Russia and the U.S. Sonia Richard screaming with every ounce of her fiber. She goes to the front. She moves by. Sonia Richard wins it for the U.S. Here they go. For the goal at 14-4.
Thank you, Mike. At this point, we'd like to open the floor for any questions or comments or suggestions. And what we would simply ask is that if you have a question or a comment, if you raise your hand, we'll recognize you from the podium here, and just ask that you state your name before you ask your question. Comments or questions? Sorry.
Sorry, I have actually two comments and questions, both involving the junior committee, junior programs. You mentioned that much over the last 30 years, while the junior committee was ACA member, it's always run into some certain problems which sort of go back and forth over them. Right now, they're consolidating all the junior programs under the junior committee. The problem run through the past, which has led to a lot of gridlock, is that going up to the committee a lot of times that trying to make recommendations. Some of them are trying to focus on the elite juniors. Some of them are focusing on trying to spread grassroots programs around the country. Two completely different things. And so what's happened over and over in reality is that there's been nonstop gridlock because they've never come to consensus in this type of thing. So they've tried to resolve in the past either by having a grassroots junior committee and a elite junior committee, or they move the elite junior stuff to the elite committee. I would recommend in some way they need to separate that and have a junior committee to go into the grassroots side strictly, just so they can focus on, so we can have more juniors in the country. Right now there are very few. Yeah, that's the first one. The other one is also related to that. Right now, if I remember my numbers right, there's only about 1,000 juniors in the USATT table tennis. If I remember my numbers, there's only 400 of them over 1,000 and only 200 over 1,500. There's only about 10 junior programs in the entire United States that can be considered serious junior programs. That, to me, that's catastrophic. That is really what leads to all our problems. Every generation, that's every 3 or 4 years of both juniors or board members, they come in, they focus on different things. But when they're all done, 3, 4, 5 years later, we're in the same situation, still maybe 10 programs. They're successful. Most of the juniors coming out, maybe 5 programs or even less. One of the recommendations I've made in the past, I'll make it here, hopefully there'll be some comment on this. Why not go to the coaching committee or the equivalent and state that what we want within 5 years, 100 serious junior programs in this country. Now, if they go to them and they come back and say, okay, this is what we need, we can at least get started. Now, let's say 5 years later, they don't get 100, you only get 70. Some will say, you failed to meet your goal. You've just gone from 10 junior programs to 70. So even if you don't make the 100, we're finally moving in the direction. And then the next generation, they're thinking, someone like me standing up and saying, we only have 70 junior programs, why can't we have 200? The idea is we now can start moving forward instead of always having to worry about a few juniors in this country. There just aren't enough of them right now. There's no
the overall strategic goals of this board, business plan, all that stuff. One possibility that might go along with what you said is when we do implement it is have the coaches take a lead role in developing junior programs, junior training programs, or have the clubs, or maybe have the coaches take a lead role in those developmental junior programs. Maybe have the clubs committee take over part of tapping the clubs maybe for potential grassroots programs or potential junior training programs. So all these committees and the new committee structure could really take a lead role in terms of the implementation of the plan as a whole.
I think the problem with it right now, when we train our coaches, and the fact that the coaching seminars are usually trained, guys who are foreign, very background, clean up more seminars than our coaches. I think we need to train to set up these programs. Look at the sport. So when a coach is running back his club and turning a 1,500 player to a 1,600 player, a year later, he's got 30 juniors trained regularly, a bunch of adults, he's got junior programs, he's got all these things going on, and then it starts to spread. So I think it really someone needs to take the lead and try to start training this type of thing, maybe from the coaching committee. I'm sure you've heard me because I've talked about this in the past. I had a proposal a couple years ago.
And it's not just you. Of all the surveys we had, there was a lot of feedback came back about coaching seminars and developing coaching, not just from a technical standpoint, but from the standpoint of actually starting and maintaining programs like that. So that's definitely a goal.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question also in regards to the junior committee. I think was the specific one of your specific comments. We have in this proposal was a high performance committee. The high performance committee was supposed to include specifically high performance juniors as well. The junior committee was supposed to do all junior issues, but the implied meaning there was the development of juniors. But I think, based on what you're saying, that needs to be emphasized more, because it could actually be seen as the junior committee is doing junior high performance, and the high performance committee is also doing junior high performance, and then nothing goes on to the development. Right, so I think that's a good proposal, and I actually thought about there could be double things. So we need to make sure that we get the development of issue from the juniors from that committee and our guidelines to that committee. That's a good comment.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Please go ahead.
We've been hearing about the high-performance plan in USATT for the last few years, and what I haven't been able to understand is how, when we have high-performance plans, do we have specific deliverables for USATT? What do we get out of the plan? Are we required to have Olympic medal in 2020?
Sure.
To answer your question, no NGBs are really required to have a high performance plan per se. What the high performance plan does for a USOC is you deliver a report. They have specific guidelines as to what they want to see in there in terms of format. But basically what it is a plan to deliver medals. The goal is up to you, but it's a plan to deliver medals. The 2020 goal is a goal that the task force, with some input from certain coaches, developed as a goal that was feasible yet challenging. So, and what happens is you deliver this report to USOC yearly, and USOC uses it as a factor in terms of determining what kind of funding and how that funding is directed within your NGB. So in previous years, for example, they found that our high performance plans have not been feasible based on their research. So that was why we received reduced funding in some of the previous years. And this year, after we submitted an interim high performance report, USOC likes the direction that we're going in, which is why we saw the funding increase.
I just want to add something really fast. And actually, it kind of addresses what Larry also said. We're going to have a new administration. We're going to have staff. We're going to have changes in organization at all times. The high performance plan is a plan. It sets direct goals. We have timelines. We have guidelines. We have measurable goals. So if we're not here, the next administration that comes in, they're going to stay on track from what we've begun. So it's not anything in particular that we have to do, but we're trying to plan something in writing and something that we can deliver over time.
If I could add one other part to that, high performance plan is a part of the overall planning that we're doing as an organization. We're also going to be working on a strategic plan that takes into account a broader range of issues in addition to high performance. So that takes into account things such as growing the sport nationally, fundraising, marketing, branded education, things like that. And to get that started, we're working on a business plan, which we're starting this month, and we'll have our report back in January. And the business plan takes a look at some of the specifics of our organizational structure in terms of how our office is structured, our staff, our fundraising, our budgeting, and gives us a good start towards the strategic plan. High performance is a piece of that whole piece, but it's a very important part focused specifically on performance. Sure, go ahead.
The reason I tried to understand that because I think it was mentioned on the website where it stated that the task force believes that 2020 is a challenging but feasible goal to get medal. I just have to wonder, is this statement designed to try to convince the USOC that we are going along with their prescribed path, or is this actually what we're working on? Because in my mind, what USATT should be working on, should always have been working on, is the grassroots structure to eventually develop those actions from having the sound structure, which is not going to happen by 2020. If you're looking at 2020, just look at this year's Olympic women's team. You have Babuin and Xiao who failed to medal. To medal, we have to have players better than those two athletes. Those two were top talents in China. Huge talent pool, much better trained than you would ever find in the U.S. So to be able to beat that 2020 sounds like I'm hoping that you're using that to satisfy the USOC
sorry to disappoint you, but actually the task force really believes that it's not completely infeasible. It's going to be challenging, no doubt, but we really feel like because the focus isn't going to be like it was in the past with us just sending some random team to the worlds every year. The focus is really going to be, as I said, the first part is from now on, the main focus right now is going to be on mostly cadets, with some focus on juniors as well, but mostly very targeted cadets who are willing to commit full-time to a program. And then along with that, also developing, as you said, grassroots infrastructure along with that so that any progress is sustainable. And you have to keep in mind that if you look at 2020, it's not just the athletes we have now. It's athletes we have now at a very young age that might have potential if we target resources at them, plus athletes that may not even have surfaced yet. So we don't want to rule anything out and think that 2020, of course it's going to be hard, as you pointed out, it's going to be very, very challenging, but we feel like it can be done.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, Attila Malik. Yeah, I'd like to, I have not seen the plan you guys submitted to the USOC. We've seen I think you guys sent us the first draft of that. But I have not seen that how many kids we need in that program. I have not seen how many hours they have to train. I have not seen how they're going to train. I seen that the idea of go send them to China or different countries. You know, what I really want to see in a high performance plan is to the ages of the kids. What kind of training program they're going to do? How many hours they're going to train? How they're going to be motivated? What kind of tournaments? What kind of programs? What kind of physical training? What kind of things that they need to go through and they will go through in order to get to a certain level? You know, to me, a plan, unless it really has specifics, you know, step by step, how we're going to get there, it's not going to happen. So that's my little comment.
I think you're exactly right. And the plan that we submitted to the USOC had a deadline in October, which there was no way we could submit a plan that was as comprehensive as that by October. So what we did do is we submitted an interim report of the survey results we got from the coaches and Han's task force to show the direction we're heading in. Han's task force is continuing to work on that plan. As he said, we're going to get additional input this week. And then that plan will be presented to the board in more detail in January. And AJ, you want to add something to that as well?
Quick thing I want to add to that. Now, as the board of directors, and then we have some athletes on the committees as well that are creating these plans. But it's very difficult to say what time somebody's going to wake up and what time they're going to do what, and down to the finest detail. The most important thing to understand is all of our plans, especially when it comes to high performance plan, they're going to be coach driven. So that's the most important thing to know. And we've got to get the capable coaches that can then implement those programs.
Okay, we all know that in order to become the best, like let's look at China for example, because we're dealing with table tennis. Those guys train 8 hours a day, 6 to 8 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. Okay? In order to be able to get to the point where we have a chance to win Olympic medals, we have to have athletes to train in that capacity. Okay? Now, we also know if you look at certain age, they put certain amount of hours each and every week into the sport, into serious training in order to get to the next level. So what I'm saying to you, we really have to get to the point, as Larry said, we have to have the number of kids, the number of coaches, that we all over the nation, we're starting programs, we're starting training centers in order to bring the kids in. The way I look at it, and I believe I send it to you guys, I want to see training centers in every single major area. And it can be done, it can be profitable. The coach, every single person who runs a training center should be able to make $100,000 a year at least as a profit, should be able to work with assistant coaches. They have to work with schools in the area. They need to start programs at the schools. They need to start competition, and it can be done. What I'm saying is that we have to have a plan. The plan has to be measurable. You got to be able to measure it. And we cannot set goals like, 20 years from now or 10 years from now, we're going to have medals apart from having those basics.
Great. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
So, just one really quick thing. As said, we are going to go into more detail in the future plan. But I understand your concerns, and I'll be glad to talk to you about it a little bit right afterwards, and I'll address those.
Over here.
I'd like to ask that the word rules is stay on the title of the official rules committee. The main function of the officials committee is to implement the ITF rules, to modify some of them to fit our code tournaments, and also to propose some rules to the ITF, and many times it was from the officials committee of USTTA that the ITF and the whole world adopted our rules. So please keep that word in the title of the officials.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
I'm Jerry Lance, one of the locals here in Las Vegas. I've been kind of frustrated in the last several years with the total lack of publicity for this tournament. I'm curious if the marketing plan includes getting some kind of publicity out to your major tournaments, such as the Open, there's no publicity, the National, there's no publicity. I never see anything. I'm also curious if the marketing plan includes some way of getting the youth, not only that are in where the major clubs are, but people like in Las Vegas, Henderson, wherever, youth interested in the game. If they don't know anything about it, all they play is in the rec center paint one. They never know anything about it. They're losing a lot of people in that case.
Those are good suggestions. Mike, do you want to add anything? I think Mike just nominated you to be on our marketing committee for Las Vegas next year.
I would be more than willing. I'm already starting to dress up for both Anderson, tournament and for Las Vegas Timberland Club. And there are several people here who would be more than happy to assist if we were to ask. And I think it's close to anybody. And I brought this up in the past.
Okay, well, Mike, you'll connect. Linda, do you want to add something? I don't think this is going to reach that far. Come on.
Yes, I just want to say I agree with everything what you said, and please understand that this new board, we're working really hard, but there's a whole lot of issues that we need to delve into yet and explore, and you just named two of them, promoting the sport. We need to give the sport of table tennis a whole new image in this country, and the whole promoting clubs and table tennis at that level and outreach, so we can broaden the pool of athletes that we can attract. Okay, so we're very much aware of that. We're just getting started.
I made no intention of bringing anything about this particular group, because I know you're new, and that's why I want to let that part of our getting blue things.
So we'd like to do it here. Okay. Do you think there was another hand over here? Okay, Larry.
Under the board meeting earlier, where the secretary couldn't speak at that time, they're discussing magazines and the ratings pages. Because I was the editor for 12 years, and that's always been an important thing, because it really is expensive to have all those pages. Right now, there are 1 page of rankings and 6 pages of ratings, and it really does get to be expensive. This is actually more for the people here to see what they think of the idea, since they're the members. Rather than have 6 pages of ratings plus the ranking page, leave the ranking page there. Do 2 things. First, for the 6 pages of ratings, you do 2 things. You still create it, but you create it as a PDF file or just an online file, and you just put it online. So anybody who wants to go browse all the ratings at once can still do exactly like that, although it won't be in your hand. But the second thing is, rather than take the 6 pages, take 1 page. And the software that we're using now, which keeps track of everyone's ratings, it would not be that hard to program. So you can have 2 things on that page. First, all new players who have an initial rating, we can say welcome, first rating, and list them alphabetically, all the new players, because new players love to see their rating in print, so they won't lose that. The second thing is, every time someone reaches a milestone, suppose someone who has been playing for 10 years, his rating is jumping around, we have ratings going back on the computer going back to 94, breaks 1,800 for the first time. Okay? Say there are 5 players who will be in there for the first time. They'll say the new 1800 class or something like that. So we list them. So everyone now has a goal. They realize that if they reach a new high, they will be listed on that magazine every time. And I worked out some quick calculations earlier. You should roughly think about page to have both of these things. So you can still browse the ratings online. You know, the ones that be in the magazine, exactly like that. So you can browse all the changes, and you can have this new thing, new incentive program of seeing the, the highlights of it whenever you reach a new level. So that's something more to see the members, because I know there's a lot of discussion on the board about whether the members really want all those pages of ratings. Not, since a lot of them realize how expensive that is, both the printing costs and the mailing costs. So.
Thank you.
Since we are on the radio issue, that first page that you're talking about, that you are not I think that only U.S. national, whoever's eligible to represent U.S. should be on the rating. The problem is right now we have lots of players that are foreign players who live in the U.S. and they are listed as on the national rating. For example, if I go to Germany and I play a tournament there, I cannot possibly be on their national rating. So that's why only U.S. eligible players who can represent U.S. should be eligible. So some kids, let's say when they have a under 12 or under 18 or under 16, it's a big difference if his name is like number 18 or he's number 2, because when you take out all those players that are not actually eligible to represent U.S., they cannot even find sponsorships, nothing. So I think we should totally, those people can always go on internet and see what they're rating if they're interested, but they should not be on that list.
Thank you for the feedback.
There are a few more things, but I think I'm going to choke everyone.
There in the back.
One way to make your comment along youth development, Larry touched on it earlier. I think we should make more of an effort, or again an effort, to get our sport into the school system. And I think at the minimum we can get them in the school system, at least in the middle school. Possibly develop an intramural system like most of the other major sports. This in itself will build esteem and will build this competition among the youth and greater development of them in the football time. Because quite often in past years we've had youth at a younger age at world level. Now we have Ariel Singh and Bang also. But they don't seem to keep up, and I think they lose an interest because so many other sports are competing. I think we should make an effort, more of an effort. We did years ago when we lost 5 to get the schools educated here to help them in any way possible. I mentioned earlier, I think, among others, Bill Gates, the Olympics, watching table tennis on one occasion, he's very much enthusiastic. His foundation gives out, I think, hundreds of years, $1,000 a year. Possibly his name could be behind a school system, donating equipment, lessons, whatever the case may be, to get us more involved with youth. There is where we're going to develop youth and talent that can be competitive on a world level, because we need to start younger. China is starting quite young, and they're training for one period of time. Please look into that. And there you have the funding if Bill Gates can get behind it.
Thank you. Mike has a comment on that.
Ray, tomorrow on the board's agenda is the celebrity item, because we think that there's a lot of items that she wanted on the agenda. We think that that's an avenue to go after. A gentleman who's a professor at Cal State Fullerton is driving up this weekend to spend 2 days with us. I hope I introduce him. I introduce him around as many people as I can. His name is Steve Aloya. And again, he's an education professor at Fullerton, but he's got this tremendous enthusiasm for table tennis out of nowhere. And he's formed the Scholastic Table Tennis Association, and he wants to create a model program that can be taken around the country. That's his goal. Very highly motivated, very energetic, and has all the contacts with superintendents in Orange County, and he's going to demand that teachers are paired with athletes playing on a regular basis. So this could be a good step for us. And, Ray, I'll introduce you to him. Anybody else wants to meet this gentleman, and we'll get his material on the website for us too. So he'll blaze a new trail for us.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ben Bernard. I'm president of a small club in Oregon. A couple of years ago, we were hearing people talk a lot about stay organization, and I don't hear that from a lot. I assume there's a reason for that, but the reason why I ask is because there's a lot of stuff now about grassroots, and it seems to me that for most of this country, outside of major areas, we've got someone in San Diego or somebody in San Francisco and so on, that's really what you have is you can't do it all from the top down. What you have around most of the country are your clubs, and you have to have some way to better connect whatever programs you want to do, whatever these plans you have you're going to implement, somehow through those clubs. And whether it's a state organization or some other method, I don't know. But I hear a lot of discussion about we need to do this to reach people and stuff, and I just don't hear anything about the clubs.
Sure. Well, that is part of the topic. That would be part of the whole strategic planning process and how we would deliver on some of these goals. Do any of the board members want to comment on the state? Part of the performance here, huh?
As I've touched on, the infrastructure part of the high performance plan covers a lot, and it really ties into a lot of other different things like grassroots as well. And one of the things we did talk about was state associations or regional associations, and also tapping into the clubs a lot more. So that issue is, we're very well aware of it, and Tori's brought it up quite a few times before, so it is on the radar.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you. Okay, I got 3 other hands here, but I will come back to that. And right behind first. Right there. The black sweater with the green and Holly.
Okay,
I did.
yeah. A lot of people talk about for the grassroots. USATT has a certified instructor coach program. And I live in the city of Los Angeles. LA is the largest school district. And half of my neighbor has people at home. And I proposed many times to the coach committee, how can we train any teacher to know table tennis? But no answer. Hopefully next time we can pursue the table tennis to the PE teacher and promote it in the grammar or junior high school.
Thank you.
This is more like an announcement for you and your workers. At Texas Western, it's more than welcome any juniors or cadets that are like at least 21, 2200. They can come and practice with our team. If USATT wants to send a coach with them to be, they can practice from January to May. We have every day for 4 hours of practice time. So they are more than welcome to use our players, basically they're sparring partners, and you can send your own coaches from USATT. You can fund them whatever you want to do, but they can join our practice. So we are trying, that's what we can do for USATT. So I hope you can find some juniors that they can relocate or that they can visit for 10 days instead of going to China or somewhere. It's not bad practice. For US standards, it's one of the best practices.
Thank you. Other comments? Larry, get your hand up.
The thing about the regional associations, I strongly agree with that idea, though. What they need to do, is there anyone here who's been involved with USA Tennis Association? Because they have a very, very successful structure on that. When they do that, they really should get some stuff from them and get some people from the organization who are familiar with them. I'm pretty familiar, but I'm sure there's others even know more about it. I looked into it a few times. I've had a lot of discussions with my tennis instructors. I play tennis also. And if we model on that, we can be I think we'll be very successful. We really need to look into some ones that have done successfully already.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the floor?
Yeah, I have one more comment, if I may. One of the things that most of the members, I wish they understand, that what we're lacking is manpower. There's tremendous amount of interest for table tennis with the kids in the schools and with the PE teachers. I just don't have enough person or coaches to be able to go in there and work with them. So I work right now with 5 coaches, and it's not enough. I need a lot more coaches. So the schools are interested, the kids are interested, we just don't have enough coaches. And that's what we need to work with. I need to work with.
Thank you. Well, if you haven't discovered it yet, there's some celebration anniversary cake in the back. All the board members and staff will be around for a while to mix and mingle and take your comments one-on-one. I want to thank you again for being out here tonight with us, and thank you again for all the comments from the floor. Have a great party.